So this is part 8, and this is going to be sideway stuff. And polo, this is pretty important to move our boat maybe just a little bit sideways to get over against somebody. So we're going to work on draws, sculling, and side slips. So what is a draw? A draw is defined as when you're pulling the blade toward the boat. For example, we just learned about bow draws. That's kind of pulling the blade toward the bow, although we start at our hip. The stern draw is the second half of the sweep where we start at the halfway point and pull in toward the stern, right? So we're pulling in. Now for just pure sideway draws. So remember the 4 B's: boat, body, boat, hand, blade angle. So let's talk about boat tilt. A lot of people make the mistake when they draw, they actually put the boat on edge toward the direction you're going and pull like that, okay? Yeah, you go sideways, but you have created a lot of resistance on the side of your boat, right? You do get a lot of extension doing that, but you have put your boat down. So, what do you want to do? Think of it as an analogy I always talk about when we're talking about climbing blades. If you stick your hand out in a moving car like this, it goes up. If you do this, it goes down. So we just did that with our boat, right? We put the boat down like this or put the boat up. In whitewater, that's why we want to actually, if the water is moving this way and there's a rock here, we actually want to tilt, not lean into the rock, tilt our boat so when the water comes here, it actually lifts the boat up. If we did this, a lot of people in whitewater, what they do is there's a rock, they lean away from the rock, the water comes like this and actually forces the boat downward when you hit the rock. So you rather tilt the boat into the rock and then just work yourself off the rock. So that's boat tilt. We want to tilt just as much as needed so that water goes smoothly under the boat. Body, we want to rotate so we keep our hands in that paddler's box, right? If we did this, that's harder on that left shoulder than if we do this. See how my hands are natural? And then top hand over the bottom hand. You want to try to get the paddle as much as vertical as you can. If you did this, right, that doesn't really bring the boat sideways with a horizontal shaft. If you do this, it moves the boat a lot more, okay? So, and then blade, the force is that way to take us that way. So that's pretty simple. Now a couple of things when we do a draw, usually we do maybe 1 or 2 or 3 in a row, you know, pure draws where we're actually taking the blade out, or we could actually feather the blade back to the catch, feather back, that's slicing the blade through the water. I prefer that over than taking it out. But notice that some people, when they do the draw, they do it a little bit to the bow comes around, and if they do it a little too much, they do it too much at the bow comes around, and if they do it too much in the stern comes around. So you want to find that nice place that brings you sideways, okay? So, you know, next, since we just pure draws like that, now we're going to talk about sculling. And I call it kind of like spraying the peanut butter on the side of the boat. So we want to actually just move the paddle through the water, and we're slicing. And then, you know, the 4 B's are about the same as draws. We want to tilt, pull the boat up so the boat slides across the water smoothly. We want to rotate a lot so we can go through this sculling motion. The top hand over the bottom hand, nice vertical shaft. But if you draw too much at the bow comes around. If you draw too much at the stern comes around. So it's very similar to just a pure draw. So, and the blade. The blade doesn't want to be open all the way because that would actually make your boat go back and forth like this, but it doesn't want to be all the way closed to the stern because then we're not really moving, right? We're just slicing the blade back and forth, okay? Although I am moving a little bit sideways, I guess there's just a little bit of pressure on that paddle. So that's a simple drill, right? Sculling, most of us already know, so kick up that knee. Okay? Now, for an extension drill here on sculling, might think we wouldn't ever use this, but you might use it somewhere, but more than that, it's something to push yourself farther along, is actually do cross sculling, where we actually reach across and make the boat go sideways, okay? So cross sculling, I won't be as good on my right side. See, I'm dropping my edge. Pick up my left knee a little bit, rotate. I've been a sea winner for so many years that I'm better as a lefty than a righty, but which side should I work on the most when I do stroke drills? The weaker side, right? So, that's draws, that's sculling. Now, the last one is the extension drill, and this is a way to move the boat sideways without changing your boat. It's called a side slip. Let me get over here. A side slip, you move forward, but you move sideways. Okay, so you have to have some speed. Since this is a static stroke, not a dynamic stroke, you have to have some speed for it to work. Come on. Okay, so you can see I moved maybe 8 feet sideways. So what do we do on a side slip? 4 B's. Boat tilt, what do you think? Same thing as the draw and the scull. We want to edge a little bit, only as much as needed. Not a whole lot, because that creates more resistance, but just enough so the water goes under. Body rotation, we want to rotate, right? Path of both hands. In this case, we want to have the top hand over the bottom hand, just like on the bow draw. Nice vertical stroke. And then the blade is going to be open here, okay? Just open just a little bit. You don't want to open too much because you're going to stop the boat and the speed of the boat will go down. And then this, since this is a static stroke, it won't work at all, right? So, something I have to mention here. Well, it's the exact same as the bow draw and the sculling. If you put the stroke too far forward, the bow's going to come around, and if you put the stroke going too far back, the stern comes around. You have to kind of find this sweet pivot spot of the boat where you put that side slip in. And I like to put it in right behind the pivot point, because if I put it behind the pivot point, I can actually move it forward and still have pressure on my blade. If I put it too far forward and I have to move it back, that's taking pressure off the blade, okay? So the thing there is we got to find that little sweet spot where to put it, and usually it's just right behind the pivot point. I also think if you put it behind the pivot point, when you put the stroke in, the boat speed goes down. What happens to the bow wave? It gets smaller, and as it gets smaller, I think the pivot point of the boat actually creeps farther forward. I'm not too sure about that, but I have kind of a theory behind that. And then the last thing is right before we put this stroke in, you got to make sure that boat is right at the top of the bow wave, or maybe just a little bit on the opposite side of you're going to put the side slip in. So I'll do it again. And you can do this drill where you can paddle along, do a side slip one way, paddle along, do a side slip the other way. So you can, and then you want to work with less and less strokes. So here we go. Slide slip to the left, my bow is straight up on the bow wave, back, side slip, press that, take a couple of strokes, and then put it on the right. Oh, I'm running out of room. Okay, oops, almost hit the rocks. So I think you can see that. You just move the boat, and you can see in polo this would be really effective. I use this a lot in polo to make people, if I don't want them to hit me, I actually use it to make them miss. Like at the last second, just move over that last 6 inches, that it makes it miss. But more than that, and this is kind of the extension drill, is actually in polo, a lot of times you just want to back up into defense, or you might need to move over. I use this going backwards. So say I want to move to the left a little bit, and I don't know if that showed it very well, but see, I moved maybe 6 feet over this way, but I'm still pointing toward the action.